Welcome to a milestone investing special. And today is the 15th of March 2018. And I'm going to be taking an investigation into the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. An article came across my desk this morning by one of our subscribers, and he basically very kindly sent me an article that really basically went on to explain why it was that Bitcoin had fallen in recent times. And so I just thought, well, you know what? And it kind of outlined almost like a daily calendar of events leading up to the event. So I thought, you know what, let me put on my investigation hat to see it. Does this make sense in light of the evidence? And can I see on the charts if what they're saying in the newspaper article is the truth? And so I decided to investigate this. So what this is my findings in digging into whether or not this article had its finger on the pulse of what's really going on. What we have on the screen is a daily candlestick of the chart for Bitcoin, and it goes back to October 2017. And if I can just get my mouse, here we go, we can see that up until here it peaked. Okay, it peaked. Now, according to the newspaper article, in fact, let me take you on a journey, because I think it's important. So before I go into Bitcoin itself, let me take you on a journey very quickly so you get the whole story. In 2009, an anonymous character called Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin, 2009. But at the time, he just had a kind of a document, working paper, and then other people took it up, and other people working with this project. But it was really small scale. And then a man called Mark Carpels, in association with another, so Mark Carpels is a French guy, and Jed McCaleb is an American. And they're working together on a Bitcoin exchange, and it's called MT-GOX. It looks like Mount Gox. Now, Mount Gox stands for Magic, the Gathering Online Exchange. And that's because originally the founder, Jed McCaleb, was actually using this particular website to exchange magic cards for Bitcoin, for Bitcoins. And at the time, Bitcoins was pennies, okay, or cents. So it really wasn't really worth much. But Mark Carpels comes along, and he joins with him, and he becomes a CEO of this organization. Now, both of these two characters are really amateurs. They don't really know what they're doing, but they're both pretty good at maybe coding, and they're basically youngsters, okay? And this, so about, what year would we say now? Let's say about March 2011. Yeah, March 2011. They noticed that someone had hacked their system and stole $45,000 worth of Bitcoins from their exchange. Okay, at this point, Jed McCaleb became very nervous and decided that he wanted out. And when he left, he basically sold up his shares really to Mark Capels in exchange for some future benefits of the revenue stream. And so effectively, for no money down, Mark Capels ends up owning most of the Mount Gox exchange, Bitcoin exchange. And that's in 2011. But what's interesting is that during the time of this $45,000 hack, what they hadn't realized, or maybe they did, I don't know, but around, again, roughly 2011, June 2011, someone had stolen the hot wallet private keys for their exchanges. In other words, someone has stolen basically the passwords for the Bitcoin wallets. and they started to sell this information to other people online, and very slowly, the money started leaking out of the wallets of the Mt. Gox customers' accounts. And for 2 years, slowly from 2012 to 2013, money was leaked out. In 2014, in February, they say they discovered the heist. That was when it was reported, okay? And on the 28th of February, 2014, Mark Caples filed for bankruptcy. So Mt. Gox went into bankruptcy on the 28th of February. Now, up until this point, I think it was about 800,000 Bitcoins had been stolen from the Mt. Gox exchange, and they had no idea where it had gone. Okay, an investigation obviously was conducted, and the FBI got themselves involved. And by July 2017, so 3 years later, they find that the audit trail led to a man called Alexander Vinnick. Now, Alexander Vinnick was the owner of a rival exchange called Bitcoin Exchange. And apparently 530,000 of the 800,000 stolen Bitcoins was found in wallets that he owned or controlled. So obviously, you know, he's obviously going to be finding himself in some problems. But what's interesting is that from 2017 onwards, obviously with the announcements of the finding of this missing money, effectively, Bitcoin starts to go up in value. Now, obviously, someone somewhere is beginning to feel happy about all of this. But in the meantime, Mt. Gox is actually in administration. So they had gone into administration in 2014, and the missing money is found 3 years later in 2017. Obviously, those who lost their money now want their money back. Obviously, it's been found. But here's what is interesting for all parties concerned. And the thing is this, is that the Mt. Gox company was actually founded in Japan. And so it follows the Japanese bankruptcy laws. And so according to Article 127 of the Japanese Bankruptcy Code, when a company goes into administration, any liabilities outstanding will actually be valued at that point. And that point, according to the lawsuit, is April 2014. And at that time, the Bitcoin was valued at $500 each. So if we step back a second and we look at it, so $500 multiplied by 800,000 missing Bitcoins, that's a value of $400 million in total. Okay, now I'm not sure if they found the whole 800 million, but they certainly got hold of 530,000 associated with this Alexander Vinnick, who was the competing Bitcoin exchange, who really basically is responsible for bringing down Mt. Gox, to be frank. Anyway, what we've got is this missing money now turning up. So obviously it's gone to court, and the administrators were basically selling off these Bitcoins. And this is where on the chart you're seeing here that on the 22nd of December of 2017, so July 2017, there is a guy called Alexander Vinnick is being charged by the FBI. And on the 22nd of December 2017, there is basically a fire sale, liquidation fire sale, because all of these assets in this bankrupt company is now coming up to be sold. So it can actually be sold, and the money given to the creditors. And so, but what's interesting, what the creditors need to get is the equivalent of $500 £500 per Bitcoin. That's what they get back. But if you look at the price today is $8,000. So let's think this through. For every Bitcoin sold, £400 goes to the creditors, but let's call it $8,000 at the moment. So we got $7,600 going back to the original company, Mt. Gox. So it looks like if this character Nobuaki Kobayashi, if he is able to sell all of the Bitcoins that has been found, he's going to end up making Mark Caples a very rich man, because for every Bitcoin sold, 400 goes to the creditors, and 7,600 will go back to Mark. Now, because some smart creditors have done the maths, they're saying, hang on a second, if we keep Mt. Gox in bankruptcy, we're going to get pennies. We're only going to get $400 because of that. That was the price of Bitcoin when this company went into liquidation. What they're now saying is, hang on, we want our coins back. We don't want the money back. We don't want it sold. We want the coins back. And so what happened is that there were a number of transactions that took place, which you can see on the screen. I'll show you those in a minute. But what's happened is that they've taken this matter back to court. And according to the Financial Times, 4 major creditors filed a petition in December 2017 asking the court to put the Mt. Gox pull it out of bankruptcy in order to distribute the Bitcoins back to the claimants. So they're saying, we don't want $400 each. We want our Bitcoins back. And obviously, if they get their Bitcoins back, they can set themselves at $8,000, which is the current price. All right. So here's the problem. Here's the bottom line. The liquidator, or the man acting for the liquidator, Nobuaki Kobayashi, he's been told he can't sell any more Bitcoins, okay, until the court case takes place on the 18th of September 2018. And so 18th of September 2018 is when he has been told he can't sell anymore. Until then, we have to see what happens. However, let me just show you the impact, what they claim is him causing the share price to fall. And we'll see that in a minute, if it's really true. But so far, he has sold 30, he's done it in 5 tranches so far. And he sold 32,000 Bitcoins into the market. He's got an outstanding 166,000 Bitcoins to be sold in his care. Now, if selling 32,000 Bitcoins could make it fall from 20,000 down to 8,000, selling 166,000 is going to make it fall even further. Okay, and so if the court case goes ahead and the judge decides in favor of the creditors and they get their Bitcoins back, so the Bitcoin is shared amongst the creditors. If that's the case, then there won't be a sale or sell-off of those Bitcoins. But if they lose the case and they continue, and this liquidator continues selling the Bitcoins into the market, it means then after the 18th, there's going to be obviously a massive drop in the value of Bitcoin unless someone with big deep pockets comes along and buys them up. But let's go back to the article. The article said that because of what this man did in selling off the 32,000 Bitcoins, he basically is responsible for making it fall. Well, let's have a look if it's true. We can see the market peaks right here, and then it starts to fall into this down channel. And right here, on the 22nd of December, Nobuaki Kobayashi sells 6,000 Bitcoins, and he transfers them from one of the wallets, and they're called cold wallets. Okay, I'm not quite sure what that phrase means. Maybe just unused reserved money. But anyway, cold wallets get sold into the market, and the share price obviously drops massively here. You can see the big tail, and then it bounces back up again. Okay, so it obviously started here, fell, and basically came to here. The very next day, it bounced back up, and then about a week later, it's back inside that downward channel. Okay, goes back in the downward channel, and then it starts to rise. Then it starts to fall again in this downward channel. And on the 17th of January, Nobuaki Kobayashi sells 8,000 Bitcoins right here. Right here. And again, that sale makes effectively the Bitcoin drop out of that channel. Then they go back up again, and they continue falling inside that channel. Then on the 5th of February, 3 separate wallets with 6,000 Bitcoins each are basically put onto the exchange for sale. Okay. And they're basically 3 cold wallets, but basically, yeah, they're 3 cold storage wallets, they're called. And they basically they're made available. So you know, you got 18,000 Bitcoins ready to be sold, and they get sold right here. So the first one of the 18,000, 4,000 gets sold on the 7th of February, right here. And then it bounces back up again. On the 8th of February, he sells another 4,000 right here. And it continues to go upwards. And right here, on the 9th of February, he sells 10,000. And it starts to march upwards. And then it starts to go down. So here's the question. Is this character, Nobuaki Kobayashi, really responsible for the decline in the Bitcoin? And all I can say to you is I don't think so. Because it was already in a down channel before he sold. What it did, he spiked it down out of the down channel, and he went back up into the same down channel. Right here again, he sells. And his selling makes it fall out of the channel. And then he goes back up again into the channel, and it keeps on falling. And then here he sells, he's selling here. And all the sales he does makes the share price go up. So even though the article blames him, the evidence is not saying that's the truth. And so unfortunately, I'm not saying that the journalist is actually deceiving us, because I just don't think that's what it is on its own. It was already peaked, and it was falling. If we look at the MACD, when the MACD crossed right here to say get out, it basically said get out here. And I think basically Nobuaki Kobayashi saw that the MACD basically said it's time to get out of the market, and he sold in line with what the market was telling him. He didn't cause it, because his trade comes after the crossover on the MACD. It peaks here, so the RSI is telling you it's basically overbought, it's too expensive, and he sells right here. That's the first sell, right here. And you can see it's after RSI goes back into normal range and after the MACD is crossed. So did Nobuaki Kobayashi, did he cause it to fall? And the evidence doesn't tell me he is the cause of it. He caused it to spike out of the downward channel, but all it did, it bounced right back up again and went back into the channel and fell as normal. So he's not the cause of it. And especially the last 3 trades he did in February, 7, 8, and 9, all of those trades result in the market climbing up and the market absorbing what's going on. Now, Mt. Gox, I'm calling him Mt. Gox, right? MT Gox. But Mt. Gox was the largest exchange in 2011. And they basically was responsible for 70% of Bitcoin transactions worldwide. Okay. Now, when they went into liquidation and filed for bankruptcy when he fell back up in 2014, Goldman Sachs stepped in, investing millions of pounds in virtual currency. Now, the truth is, Mark Caples was considered to be a bit of a cowboy and not really a brilliant businessman. Maybe a good hacker, maybe a good computer analyst or a coder, but not a businessman. And Goldman Sachs have taken over. Now, if Goldman Sachs or a company supported by Goldman Sachs, if they create another exchange and take up the slack that was created, or the void that was created when Mt. Gox went out of business, then I can see that you're going to have a stable, they're going to create a stabilizing force within this particular asset class. And so here's a question: what's going to happen in September? Because if the court case that's going to court on the 18th of September, if the creditors lose that case, the Nobuaki Kobayashi is going to keep on selling those bitcoins into the market. And so technically, if he sells 166,000 bitcoins into the market, he's going to crash it. Now, personally, I'm thinking I'm not sure if he's taking the best options that's available, because personally, that kind of Bitcoin, that kind of volume, I wouldn't sell it into the market if I was doing this. What I would do, I would actually try and sell it to a Goldman Sachs. I would give it to them. Let them, or someone who's the new exchange, let them take it. Because if you can give it to them and they become like the market makers of this, then the price becomes stabilized. It's a little bit like how De Beers is the market maker for diamonds internationally, and they basically just soak up the excess supply of diamonds and they regulate it. They make sure that the price of diamonds stays relatively stable and high. And this is an easy one to actually manage, but you do need someone who has the equivalent, who can basically replace Mt. Gox. You can't put it into the market. To put it into the market, you're going to crash the price. If you essentially keep this stuff out of the public for now and give it to a market maker, and the Goldman Sachs is big enough, they got big enough and deep enough pockets to actually play that part. So I would, if I was this character Nobuaki Kobayashi, I'd be going that route. I wouldn't be selling them into the market. I would just find someone to take it and who could play that role, because otherwise you're going to basically destroy the value of all of those the bitcoins, not the ones he's got in his hands, but all the others as well. And he's not going to get the very best price. Now, clearly, he can't sell the bitcoins to those guys for the same price it's here. He's going to have to discount it. That's obvious. However, if he sells them himself, he's going to push the price down, and he won't get a good price anyway. He will cause a problem. And if he could cause a problem with 32,000, and like I said, I can't see this being him. However, if he does sell 166,000, if he does sell that, I think that'll have an impact. And so really, all eyes, for those of you into Bitcoin, you have to pay attention to what happens basically mid-September. Because mid-September, the 18th of September, is going to be something that you must pay attention to. It's going to the courts, and a judgment is going to be obviously made soon after that date, or on that date itself, as to whether this Mt. Gox stays in liquidation or stays in bankruptcy or not. If it does, it'll be sold on the markets by the insolvency practitioners, and if the creditors win the case, then all of these coins get transferred to the creditors. Now, if it gets transferred to the creditors, that's the equivalent of selling it to the Goldman Sachs posse. They just get it and they keep it out of the market. So instead of selling it onto the market, you just give it to individuals, they keep it. And that's actually a better deal, because even though those guys themselves become wealthy because they're now holding an asset class worth $8,000, instead of, for them, all they're going to get, if it gets sold, all they'll get out of it is $400. So it's clearly in their interest if the judge rules in their favor. Anyway, I just thought it'd be interesting to just basically pay attention, see, did this article accurately describe why Bitcoin was on the decline. And I'm going to suggest that maybe not. Maybe not. Did it contribute? Yes. Is he the reason for the fall? No. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. I hope you found that useful. By the way, the FBI charged, by the way, in July 2017, the FBI charged Alexander Vinnick of basically being the culprit in the theft of the stolen Bitcoins from Mt. Gox exchange. And from July 2017, in fact, 2017 saw a massive, massive bull run. And so I believe that it was the associated news relating to that caused that to go up. In fact, there was another chart I saw, and I thought it was rather interesting, because what I noticed is that most of 2017, the price was not driven so much by volume. It was a price action movement, not a volume action movement. And what that basically tells me is that the price was really going up based on hype. And so what you've got in this particular asset class, you've got supply and demand that is causing the prices to move up or down. But then in addition to supply and demand, you've got hype. And what hype does, it stimulates even greater demand. Okay, it agitates the demand to be even higher. And so in essence, a lot of the 2017 movements was hype. Now, because of that, the valuations can't be sustained forever when it's just hype alone. And so, like I said, unless you get a Goldman Sachs soaking up the supply to make sure that there's not too much going into the market, and they act as market makers, unless you get someone like that doing that, this won't be sustainable on the upside if this character, Nobuaki Kobayashi, starts selling these Bitcoins off into the market in September. Anyway, guys, I hope you found that useful. I found that way too much, way more than I wanted to know about Bitcoin. Even after all of this, even though it was a fascinating tale about the life of Bitcoin since 2009, it's not an asset class. In fact, it's really only 9 years old, for goodness sake. It's not an asset class that gives me any confidence that I want to be joining this particular foray anytime soon. But anyway, I hope you found that useful. Take care, guys. Bye now.